I don't try to make a habit of speaking in place of anybody, but if I were to, if you humor me for a minute, those of you who took the journey that I did with me on this channel in consulting SIRENIA's work for the first time through 3 of the earlier pieces, In Styx Embrace, Into the Night, and Love Like Cyanide, all from Arcane Astral Aeons, you were as captivated by their work as I was. That the promise of listening to more recent pieces is an automatic temptation. And it was always my, expectation to bring more of their music on. It's just I haven't had as much time because I've consulted a number of artists on this channel. I've got a wide selection of music I bring on, and I wanted to dig back intentionally to get a more expanded familiarity to their craft. And I made a good move, obviously, because like I said, those first 3 pieces were automatically enticing. I knew there was a promise that SIRENIA would be, given my familiarity and association with Morten Wieland's work. And I was amazed, and I still kind of am in a way, even though I've given all 3 tracks substantial repeat listens at this point. The atmosphere to SIRENIA's work, the tone, the diversity of instruments, and the application, as well as the vocal talents of Emmanuel Zoltan, which were intoxicating. It was an experience that I will not forget about. That the promise, again, of looking at, just as much as I'm saying it's a temptation for you, it is for me. I want to hear more of their music. SIRENIA captivated me instantly, and for me, it's advantageous in regards to my connection to them, given I'm a big symphonic metal guy. I mean, I've been a metalhead for many years, and I have broad tastes in that respect, even to some other genres as well. I keep an open door, but symphonic metal, I love orchestral type stuff, and SIRENIA has such an expansive presence in that vein that showcasing talents like them on this channel as I bring music into a greater focus, which has been a long time ambition for me, and I'm finally succeeding in bringing this to life, and I'm very happy with the trajectory we're going on thus far. They were must additions, at least in my opinion. And I'm grateful I took the journey with them, with many of you. And I'm imagining there's going to be a wide pool of audience members consulting this video, perhaps longtime SIRENIA fans, perhaps even longer than myself. It's been the last couple of months I've been engaged with their work. Some of you maybe came through familiarity with them on this channel, because again, I cover a wide array of artists in name notoriety and genre focus. I cover a broad range intentionally to get, wider perspective as well to artists that truly deserve said recognition if I can in any way help with that. I like to pave routes for you to explore talent if you happen to be in an artist shopping mode. And some of you perhaps are approaching this on a first name basis. You have no clue who SIRENIA is. You never heard of them before. Maybe you've heard the name, you just haven't engaged with their work. We're going to have another journey together through expanding beyond Arcane Astral Aeons now into the second album, which at the time that I was planning to consult them was the more recent debut, but since they've announced a new one, 1977, we'll get to that later tonight, or maybe I don't know when the video is going to be posted, but it'll probably be soon in tandem with these. But right now we're on Riddles, Ruins, and Revelations. I love that name, and the cover art, that green, is a beautiful, I'm an artistic guy, so when I see color choices like that, it strikes my eye immediately. And Arcane Astral Aeons is quite beautiful too, but the green is just so luminescent. Like, okay, it's charming enough, let's engage with this. And we're going to start, I've got about 4 tracks in total I'm going to go by, 3 of which got a video, and then 1 I heard a sample of. I'm like, I want to hear more of this piece. We're going to start with Addiction number 1. I like the name. And there's an official music video to correspond to the release, so I'm going to go ahead and cue that up, and we'll get a first taste on both. And if you're somebody who's not familiarized with the way I format content on this channel, the lyrics will be provided to you in the video, and you'll see those pop up as soon as the song launches. Let me get it ready now. But let's engage with SIRENIA. For some of you, it'll be an expansive journey beyond Arcane Astral Aeons with me. For some of you, perhaps this will be a first introduction. You're going to like SIRENIA, I think. I would imagine. And Napalm Records, such a beautiful supply of talents. I've been engaging with them for a while. Okay. Nice electronic keyboard effects. It's a bit different from what I've heard. But Morten Wieland's played with this in Mortemia. Good acceleration. Oh. Killer tones. I love the pitches of their pieces. But that rock basis is just beautiful. Okay, a bit of like a pop vibe too. It's so metal at its base. I love it. I like the layer of the operatic background too on behalf of her. And I'm imagining the Sirenian choir too. I've been learning. Spoken in sentence. Great set design, by the way. Imagine if it's more CGI, but it's pretty. I mean, it's rather dark and dingy, but I'm still like the atmosphere to it again. It feels so grand. The structure of these verses is great, especially in the interludes into the chorus sections. It's specifically that operatic background for me. Great drive here. Oh, wonderful presence. Both Morton and Nils, so attractive. Good placement for a riff too. Wonderful feed in. I love how dated this feels too. It's in the chic that everybody is, approaching this track with. Even Emmanuel's attire, like some of this feels so retro, in my opinion, like dating back a bit. But it's particularly modern, even in the electronic tones. It crosses over certain eras. It's wonderful. And the tone of that ending. I like the experimentation of that work a lot. I mean, it feels very distinct, in my opinion. I know I'm only 3 tracks into their work. I'm still making my way through Arcane Astral Aeons. I will in full, but I'm operating from the selection of tracks I heard with you at the first 3. This is very different. I mean, I like when groups play around in certain, respects, and there's a bit of there's an experimentation to their work and a freshness, right? Every group, broadly speaking, has to, of course, maintain perhaps a familiarized presence for longtime fans, but is still looking for ways to stretch their abilities. And again, it's universal and even outside the metal landscape. But this has such a distinct tone from my previous exposure to them. It really does feel like an experimental piece. Even though there are key similarities, I mean, you've got the heavy rock emphasis, which on part of both guitarists is amazing. It has such a metal luster, that aggression to me. Again, when you're speaking about being a metalhead, there's different respects and preferences. Generally, of music, music is a very subjective artistic form to connect with, as really any artistic presence is, but even in the metal scene, there's certain tastes. Some prefer maybe more softer songs. Others prefer the thrash headbangy type stuff, and I'm more of a case of a latter. Though again, like I said, I keep an open door. I just love the presence of that piece. Again, the drive of it, the structuring, the electronic tones, and especially how that plays into not only the vocal presence, as well as just the atmosphere of the video and the visualizer component. Less the story, more the band and performance. it feels dated, but I don't say that in an insulting way. It feels intentionally like it's crossing over in different time periods. Because I think back to maybe music I listened to years ago, when I was just starting my journey into rock, and it has this older vibe to it that just makes it feel so distinct, where it's not necessarily a modernized work. I mean, even some of their other pieces from Arcane Astral Aeons have that type of presence as well. I'd say the symphonic drive of the orchestral is a more classical sound. Because you think of like classic symphonies and things like that, and it definitely evokes that energy, but again, it has that metal integration. Especially on the opera. I mean, it's just so beautiful listening to Emmanuel. Even though there's lesser presence here and her operatic vocals, in addition to the Sirenian choir, are played more in the background element, which I like that atmosphere. Again, like I said, it opens up the track's feeling and the presence of it quite a bit. Even if they were front focus, that'd be great too, like it was with Into the Night. That high range still gets me, how good that is. But there's just something about this piece, again, like I said, that it's a throwback in tone to older time constraints. So even though it is fresh, and it is a particularly recent piece of theirs, it just feels like something I would have heard, like 10, 20 years ago. Everything about this piece to me it clicks. As it has, speaking generally of Sirenia's work thus far, and again, I operate based on my Morton Veland familiarity with Mortemia. The atmosphere to symphonic metal is just, it lures me in. And so a song like this, which is very different, it has that orchestral side, like I said. So automatically I'm lured in on that. But I've also spoken before, in regards to my genre preferences, and I haven't necessarily spoken in the most glamorized manner of pop songs. I'm much more, like I said, a metal guy, especially in the European scene. And I say this specifically not just to perhaps throttle you to engage with more European talents, of which I can say I've said it many times, it's a gold mine in the world of metal. There are so many artists of which I've consulted on this channel, I have yet to consult. You're missing out if you haven't ventured here yet. Europe is filled from country to country within its borders with so many killer names. And it's the one place that I've said, for me, aside from a couple American exceptions, I'm much more alternative guy. I prefer to be, I've always had that mindset to me in regards to every approach I've had in life. I'm very originalist. I wasn't always like this, but I tend to, especially in the latest of years, float less into the mainstream. I'm very much, as I've said, in many cases, an anomaly in life. So I don't float over into what's popular or what's trending that often, especially in American music. Most of the mainstream music, in my opinion, with exception to certain artists, and whether they be currently ones I've addressed on this channel or coming, mainstream music doesn't necessarily do it for me. It's the alternative that brings me in. And I found with European music, especially in the metal environment, it's the one place that I find where pop may be an integration. It universally works. It's very creative to me what different bands play with in the European market with pop tones. And this has such like a pop punk energy to it. I mean, it's explicit. It's very, like I said, this particular track is so singular to me in comparison to what I've heard elsewhere. And maybe the rest of Riddles, Ruins, Revelation, specifically as well in regards to the tracks I'll be consulting later, maybe they'll all kind of play around with that. Maybe this is sort of supposed to be like a new venturing, or maybe it'll kind of float around in the territory with what's familiarized to Sirenian sound and newer attempts. But it impresses me. Like I've said, I keep an open door, even on pop music, because sometimes, it might play into the tone of a song and there might be a bit of a blend, and it might work sufficiently enough for me that I'm willing to overlook previous discounting within that genre or field. Addiction number one, I'll give that exception as well. I think it's pretty good. I like the tone of it. Like I said, the adventurism of this piece and its scope, in its time placement, is in the musical energy, the vocal side to it, the symphonic drive. Again, that's the basis and the core of Sirenia's work, and that's present here. But it's just so layered in the different elements that they utilize that I find it as compelling as I have other tracks of theirs. Addiction number one really is a very interesting presence, at least from what I'm familiarized to, and now having consulted in total 4 songs, going on in total, at the very least, currently 8 of what I have planned. I'd love to hear what your thoughts are down below for those of you who are, whatever angle you approach this video. If you wish to disclose your perspective, if you're a longtime SIRENIan fan, or SIRENIA, I'd like to hear your thoughts, especially on this, because you have a more extensive presence and familiarity with the library than I do. Have they played around like this in the past with punk pop tones? And do certain works of theirs feel explicitly like time throwbacks? I'm very curious to hear, because again, I'm operating off of Arcane Astral Aeons, and that was more so just furrow symphonic metal, with again the classical vibe of the symphony and the operatic tones and elements. For those of you who, as well, this is going to be first introduction to, and like I said, I imagine there's going to be a diversity of poll here. What were your thoughts on that? Does Addiction Number 1 compel you to look deeper into their work? Based on what I've heard thus far, it'll be perhaps a bit strengthened on the rock side and the metal side for you if you consider past works that I've looked at. But I'd generally like to hear if this track motivates you to look deeper into their library. It does for me. I mean, again, I said my intention was to consult more of their later works post Arcane Astral Aeons, and with the setup to Riddles, Ruins, and Revelations, I'm pretty fascinated to hear more of their work going forward. I'm still open, on the basis of symphonic metal alone and my familiarity now to SIRENIA, but Addiction Number 1's got an interesting flavor to it. I'm really interested to hear more of their works and see if those other types of songs and the threads of what I'm seeing here are a mainstay, or if it's just sort of a one-off in energy. But I think it's a successful one-off. It's quite interesting to me in regards to the freedom here with this piece. It's very different, and I like the charm in that. Thank you so much for watching this video. Before you bounce, feel free to drop a like and comment, subscribe to this channel with a ding on the bell, and share this video with your friends. And consider checking out the description here. There you'll find links to my other channels, as well as addresses to my other social media accounts and ways you can help support my work if you feel so inclined. May God bless you, and looking forward to when our paths cross again.